just be yourself.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like, your people will come to you as they have.
Yeah.
And that's like my view. I feel like if someone doesn't like me, honestly, it's their problem, not mine.
I've been scared to, just kind of like get my voice heard in the right way.
Yeah.
And be just feel confident in what I'm saying.
I basically decided at 16 that I wasn't going to care what people think about me.
Oh
like,
my God.
I remember having like a clear thought because I was about to move to sixth form in a different school, and I was feeling like stressed, like, oh, like, I don't know, what if I don't make friends? But then I just said, you know what? Who cares?
Saying a black influencer gets paid more than a white influencer doesn't mean anything unless we know like the tone, because I'm mixed race and have a light skin tone, but my family members who are not mixed had the same skin tone as me.
Yeah.
So, you know, we would all probably benefit from that privilege.
Like, you're actually that girl. Welcome. This is the Paula Oyinkan Show, where our mission is to inspire women like you to be the best version of yourselves at every stage of life. I'm so excited because today I'm joined by Charlotte Stavrou. She is a multi-award winning marketer, and she's also the founder of SevenSix Agency. And I'm not going to do too much talking because I'm going to let Charlotte introduce herself. But before we do that, I'm going to get you to pick a card, Charlotte.
Okay.
So pick a card, any card.
Let's go for this one.
And what does it say?
How do you cultivate resilience in the face of setbacks?
Oh,
gosh.
that's
What
a good question for you, actually.
I think being an entrepreneur, that is just life. Every day is a setback. Like, you have your highs, you have your lows. Every day you get a win, and then something takes you 2 steps backwards. So I think you just kind of, it's basic, but I literally just have to just dust myself off and like go again, because there's been so many times where bad things have happened or things that felt like they were the end of my world. But the amount of the time that that's happened, it wasn't the end of the world. You just have to remind yourself, like, no one died. Everything was fine. I'm still here. So yeah, just like constantly reminding yourself, it's okay.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Charlotte. And I genuinely do think you're a good person for that, because obviously you've built something amazing. But in your own words, who is Charlotte Stavrou?
Oh, multifaceted. So who am I? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a wife. I'm a dog mum.
Oh,
I'm a sister. I'm a friend. I'm also chaotic. And often late, often just living in my own dream world. But I'm just trying to live, trying to have a good time.
I get that. What kind of dog do you have? I'm a dog mum too.
Are you?
I am.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I have a
Shout out, Boo.
shout out Boo, shout out Prince. So Prince is an Italian greyhound mixed with a miniature pincer. So it's not. I don't think he's technically a breed. He was given to me. He was the last of his litter by like a friend of a friend when I lived in Portugal, and he is as crazy and chaotic as I am. He often gets mistaken for a street dog, and people always say to me, "Oh, did you get him in Portugal? Did you adopt him?" I'm like, no, he is just like a normal dog. He's just a bit feisty.
So is he like smaller than a standard greyhound? Because that combination
He's
is
about the same size. So Italian greyhounds are really small. They're like the skinny ones that look like if you blew them like they would fall over. He's that size, but he's a bit more muscular.
Okay.
I can't really explain him. He's I'll show you a picture of him later. He's gorgeous.
I am a dog girl, honestly. We love a dog in our family.
What's Boo?
Boo's a Shih Tzu.
Oh, I love
He is
Shih
all
Tzu.
Shih Tzu. He's crazy, but he's calmed down now because he's 8 years old now. Honestly, I can't believe how old he is. I'm not even going to go
Prince
on and
is
on about
12,
it.
so I know.
Really? Oh, and I know this might be a bit morbid, but don't you think about like how it's coming?
I actually thought about it yesterday. I was like, because
It breaks my heart.
he was so tired from coming back from the dog walker, because I was on a shoot yesterday with my husband. So we got the dog walker in and he was exhausted when we got home, and I poked him, he didn't move, and I was like, well, what if he died? And then I don't know why he thought that, and then he just kind of went, and I was like, okay, thank goodness he's still with us.
Literally, sometimes Boo's in his cage, I'm like, Boo. Yeah, then he wakes up and he's fine. But do you know what? Shih Tzus, they've got like I think like maximum lifespan was 15 years, something
Yeah,
like
my
that.
best friend has Shih Tzus. She's had 3, 2 of them passed away
Yeah.
recently, but they're 13. So
Okay.
they're
They do live a
all
while.
siblings, and they've lived like
Yeah.
a long life.
Oh, it's so sad to think about. I didn't even mean to get into
Yeah,
this,
it's like a
honestly.
this whole episode's gonna be about dogs. Welcome to the dog show.
But I was gonna say, like, looking at what you're doing now, when you reflect on your childhood, do you feel like it makes sense that you're doing what you're doing now with 7/6?
I don't know, to be honest. When I was younger, I thought I was gonna be the next Carrie Bradshaw. I really thought I saw that in me. When I was younger, I watched a lot of Sex and the City at a really inappropriate age, and I think we all did. I like to think. And I watched a lot of Girlfriends. I remember my dad vividly allowing me to watch that show because I think he wanted me to watch like black women on TV. My mom's white, my dad's black. And again, super inappropriate, but he was like, "Go for it, girl! Like, enjoy it." Because there wasn't actually that much representation on TV. There was a lot on like we did have a lot of TV shows, more I think more then than we did now in the 90s. We had like One on One,
and Trouble,
Moesha, like Trouble and Nickelodeon and Disney did really well for us. But there wasn't many adult shows.
Yeah, that's true.
So Girlfriends was quite a big deal. But I thought I was going to be a writer. Which, to be fair, I was a blogger for a long time, so I did do that. And I do live on the outside quite a glamorous life. So I kind of am in my Carrie Bradshaw sense, but I don't write that often. To be honest, I do write. I wrote an article for Condé Nast Traveler a couple of months ago. So I take a Carrie Bradshaw. So
Yeah, there you go. You're living your dream.
yeah, I think the young Charlotte would look at me and be like, "Whoa." Like I didn't see that coming. This is great.
Yeah, oh, I love that. And I wanted to talk about obviously 7/6. That's your agency. But one thing that I found really interesting when I was like doing my research was that the inspiration came from the Race Relations Act of
Yeah, the
1976.
name.
Yeah.
So that's because choosing a name for your business is really hard.
Yeah.
I don't know how people do it. And I often think about when I see other agencies with numbers, I'm like, where did that number come from?
Yeah.
But I couldn't, it took me months, honestly, from November to February, that entire time I was thinking of the name. The business was sorted. I just couldn't find a name. And my husband just sat me down and was like, right, we need to nip this in the bud. It's getting ridiculous. So I need you to think about what is it? What's going to be the name? So he was like, is there a number that means something in your world? He was like, think about what you're doing. So I sat down and thought, right, what are the key things that have happened in like the D&I space? And 1976 was a big year for legislation around discrimination. So we had the Race Relations Act, which was amended in 1976. And it also, there was an amendment on the Women's Rights of Women's Discrimination Act around that time. So I was like, it's quite a big year. Let's go for that. And that act doesn't exist anymore. It's now the 2010 Equality Act, but it fed into the ability for people not to be discriminated in the workplace around racial discrimination. So I felt like that was fitting for what I do, because 7/6 is an inclusive marketing agency. We focus on influencer marketing and we really push inclusion. So we work with a broad range of talent from all kind of diversity characteristics. And when we put on campaigns, we manage creators who are all people of color, creators of color. But then on our marketing side, we really push for inclusive campaigns. So that's not just Black creators or creators of color. It's like, what does London specifically look like? So when we walk out on the streets of London, it's a melting pot.
It is.
And that's what a campaign should look like. So that's what we do.
No, I love that. And it is very true. And how did you come about 7/6? Like, I said it before we started, I do want this to be a bit different to other podcasts, but I still think it's really important for like anybody who is listening to kind of understand your journey to get into where you are today.
I say that I've pretty much always done the same job since I left uni. So I studied languages at university, but I've always been obsessed with social media, like utterly obsessed. When I was at school, I did a lot. I loved MySpace. Like MySpace was my jam. I cannot express to you. It still pains me. I'll bring it up in any conversation. Look at me now. Like there's a camera. Let me talk about MySpace. But MySpace was a big thing. And then when I went to uni, I found uni quite tough. And I realize now for lots of different reasons. I basically, found uni quite tough. At the time, I thought it was just because I didn't have my tribe. But now I realize it's also because I was dyslexic and I didn't know at the time. So there was a lot going on. So I took to YouTube and blogs in about 2009 to 2010 when I went on my year abroad, and I felt really lonely and really isolated. And I just was really into that kind of YouTuber era. And there were so many incredible women online that would teach me how to do my hair, how to do my makeup, how to just live, having a chat. And I was just finding my people. And that was a really big thing. So graduated uni and went to work. I went to live in Portugal, worked there for a bit, but I really was into marketing but couldn't get a job there in marketing. So I did some freelance stuff from the UK but in Portugal and social media. And then that's when I kind of stepped into the working world afterwards when I moved back. But it was always marketing. So I was loving influencer marketing, writing my own blog, doing my own Instagram, and being an influencer, which that wasn't what it was called at the time. But being an influencer in my own world, and then doing social media for whichever company I was working for at the time. And then influencer marketing to an extent at the beginning. So I worked in e-learning, and I used to work with the influencers of the e-learning world, which sounds so boring, but actually it was so fun. It's one of my favorite jobs I've ever had. And then I moved to Sanrio, which is the company that owns Hello Kitty, and I looked after the Hello Kitty brand across the EMEA market. And that was very much focused around influencers and just kind of getting people to love Hello Kitty again, because it was in one of its dips. So we brought it back up, and that was amazing. So I left Hello Kitty, went to 1Ls, and then I went freelance. And I think the one of the biggest things when I went freelance is realizing how you kind of own. When I was in-house, I owned my budget in a very different way to what I assumed everyone else was doing. So I would be working with a really diverse group of people, because I have a really diverse friendship group. So I'd often just get my friends in to do campaigns. And I have a lot of friends who are creators, so that just made sense. But then when I went freelance, I was working on other brands and working within agencies. And I just realized, I was like, there's no diversity in this space. And I'd never worked for an agency in the advertising space. So I didn't know what was going on there. And I was like, wow, this is really grim. So I started the business because I saw that and thought, okay, I am in my mid to late 20s. I was 28, having this existential crisis. And I was just thinking, what is it that I want to do? Do I want to push consumer products for the rest of my life? Apparently I do. That's fine. But there's a bigger meaning here. And a lot of my friends at the time were having issues who were influencers. They were saying, I've got this amazing audience. I had all these followers, but I'm not being booked by brands. Why? And I didn't get it. But I realized it's because so many of these brands within the teams, be that agency side or in-house, it was basically one type of person that was really there booking the influencers. And I noticed it was normally a young woman in her mid-20s. She was white, and she was often from outside of London. So she was from Leeds or Birmingham or whatever. She'd moved to London. And this is really making a customer profile. But generally, she'd moved to London after uni. She probably lived in Clapham or Brixton. And the first time she'd ever interacted with a black person would be then, or she'd ever seen a woman walking down the street with wearing the hijab then. And it's whoa, how is that your first interaction? But then you're given budgets, and you're just supposed to know that you're meant to have a diverse group of influencers on your campaign. And there's no one at the time, there was no one telling them they had to do that. So they were just working with what they knew to them. So if you go through your Instagram, you'll be scrolling through, and my Instagram will probably will have similarities, but there'll be differences, because I'm sure I have a lot of light-skinned black women or mixed race women with curly hair who I want to copy their hairstyle or similar body shape to me, because I want to wear what they're wearing. And yours would be slightly different, but then we'll meet probably in the business side or owners of brands that we like. Whereas if it's a white woman, that would be very different. And a white woman of a certain size, that would, it would be just so different. So having that diversity, not just within the campaigns, but in the back end of influence marketing, was so important. And I realized I could actually make a change here, because I naively thought I knew, I could do this. I knew what I'm doing, but I knew loads of people. And at my role at Hello Kitty and also at WOW, I was focused around partnerships. So as much as it was digital marketing, one of our really big key parts of the job was partnering with other brands. So we do like Hello Kitty for ASOS, Hello Kitty for Furla, Hello Kitty for GCDS, anything, Tangle Teaser, OPI, like every brand you can ever think of. I've probably worked on a campaign with Hello Kitty on. So I had this like little black book of all these brands that knew me, and I could then just go pitch influencers to them, and that's how it started.
I love that.
So,
Your network really is your net worth then,
honestly,
isn't it?
I wouldn't be able to get through to year 5 without the people that I know.
Wow. And you know, there's so many things that you touched on from what you've just said. But I also wanted to ask about, like, you mentioned that you've got dyslexia, but what was the journey finding out about that? Because you said you struggled in uni, but I'm guessing you found out after
I found out
uni.
last year.
Oh, okay, yeah. So how did you find that out, and what was that like?
So I used to have a podcast with the BBC. It still exists. Go listen to it on BBC Sounds. It's called All Consuming, and it's about marketing and consumer products. But it was the first time that I'd ever done anything scripted, and I'm not a scripted person. And I don't know, have you seen that film In Her Shoes with
Is it like a
Cameron Diaz
Oh,
and
okay, yeah.
another girl? It's a book. I think it's by Marianne Keyes, whatever. But I've read the book and I watched the film. But there's a part of it where Cameron Diaz goes to this casting, and she has to read off of a teleprompter, and she can't.
And they're sisters, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
she can't do it. And I always used to watch that film, and it was like this big connection to this film that I love, and I couldn't ever realize why. It's because of that.
Yeah.
So basically, she was dyslexic and couldn't read off a teleprompter, and I never once clicked like, oh, that's literally me. But when we were doing the script with the show, the production team that I was working with that isn't the BBC, they were just like, oh, here's the script. And I would get it on the day, which I kept being like, I don't know if I can do this. I need to have it way before. But my co-host gets things really quickly. And he's also a genius. And he knows, like, Amit, shout out to you, because you know everything. Like, if you talk to him about any subject, 'cause he's a writer. He writes for Wired magazine, and he's literally written an article on anything. One day we're like, oh, we're going to talk about batteries. He was like, oh, I've actually written 3 articles about batteries. He's just so clever. And every topic he just knew. And I was just like, how do you not only know all of this stuff, but how can you just read off of this script? And he basically said to me, Charlotte, I think you should get tested for dyslexia.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't have a problem with spelling. I don't have a problem with grammar. I don't have a problem because we have dyslexia in my family. My nan's dyslexic, my mum's dyslexic. So I didn't realize that it comes in different forms, but mine is processing. So it takes me a bit longer to process information than like the average Joe, which means I literally cannot read off of a script. And one time my husband said to me, which wasn't funny at the time. Now looking back, I'm like, haha, you were really mean, you didn't realize. But over COVID, we used to like try to find ways to like make things fun. And like one time I was like, let's read bedtime stories, and we like read to each other. He said to me, you read like you've never read before. But I'm quite an avid reader. So he was like, if I didn't, and he never reads anything apart from like articles. So he was like, if I didn't know that you read a book like every day, I like before bed or whatever, I wouldn't know that you could actually read. And I was like, that is the meanest thing you've ever said, but also it's really funny. But it's just because I can't process the text on the screen, on screen or on the page.
So is it the reading out loud specifically?
Yeah, I can read. It's to do with like, from what I really need to go down, because I only learned about it literally a year ago, last October.
Yeah.
Well, we're in January now, so cut that out. Literally almost 2 years ago now. But it's the seeing the text on the paper, the timing it takes for me to like see it with my eyes, absorb it in, and then be able to do something with my brain to then like say something about it. That takes a really long time. Even things like, I meet people all the time, and do you know, people are like, oh, I'm really bad with names. I'm bad with names and faces, but not because I don't just remember your name or your face, but I have to like have things anchored in my mind to remember you. So my sister, there's this guy that I meet all the time, apparently. My sister is always like, oh, you always forget him. And I'm like, I don't know, I've never met him before. But it's just because we haven't had like an experience anchored into my mind. It's like I have this thing. And even like there's a girl recently, I went to an event, and there's a girl I would call her my like industry friend. I know her really well. And she came up to me, and my brain, literally, I just couldn't remember her name. And I had to introduce her to a friend. I just got my diagnosis at the like couple of months at the time. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to say this now.
Mhm.
It's not that I don't know you, because
Mhm.
obviously we are actual friends and I speak to you all the time, but
Mhm.
at this moment, I can't remember your name. And then 15 minutes later, it popped into my
It
brain.
clicked,
And
yeah.
I'm still trying to navigate it, but it's not
Mhm.
like a thing that it doesn't matter, but it also does matter.
Yeah.
So I struggled a lot at uni because for many reasons. I think I went to a state school and I went to like a red brick uni and like a Russell Group uni. And the way you learn at uni was very different to how I learned at school. And that jump, I felt like I needed another year to like learn. Like I couldn't write an essay when I went to uni, and I had to get a friend to teach me how to write. But private schools get taught how to
Yeah.
do uni stuff. But it's just, I was like, I'm not prepared for this. But then also being dyslexic, I couldn't revise and I couldn't learn. I haven't ever revised a day in my life. Like I'd sit in the library and just look around and like go and get a drink and like have a chat, and people would always be like, Charlotte, what's going on? Like, you haven't revised. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I am. But now I'm realizing I'm just lucky to be naturally kind of clever, and then also be able to remember things in my own way. So if someone tells me something in passing, I can remember that really easily.
Okay, yeah.
But that's how I process. It's just, I'm really learning about it, but it's come in handy as a business owner because there's things that I'm really bad at, like finance. That I'm terrible at maths, can't do my timetables, like anything maths related, my brain literally shuts down. My finance manager, sometimes he's like, are you with me? Because he knows, he gets it, and he's like, have I lost you? Are you with me? I'm like, no. And he's like, no, I'm going to explain it in another way so that you can get it. And I'm like, okay, thank you. But I am really good at other things. Like, it makes me super creative.
Yeah.
It makes me learn things. Like if I talk to someone or if I sit on a talk, I'll just remember that information. I don't need to be taught it.
Yeah.
But I don't really need to I'm really good at I can edit a YouTube video. I can pretty much do anything generally in marketing. I used to call myself a generalist because I can just learn really quickly.
Yeah.
But I have to be shown how to do it. And that's why YouTube was really great for me, because I learned everything from looking at it.
And did you ever have your own YouTube, or it was just
I
blog?
did. When
Yeah.
I was at uni, I had a YouTube. When I was at uni, I had a YouTube channel, and it was focused around like fashion and hair.
Okay, yeah.
And then I stopped doing it.
Wait, did you say that you deleted it as well, or is that?
Did I delete?
that
I
was
think
something else?
No, I think I accidentally deleted my blog.
Oh,
That was
okay,
an
yeah,
accident.
that's what. Yeah.
Yeah, that was last year.
Oh,
And
so it's quite recent.
yeah, but I didn't post on it, but I deleted I moved it over
Okay, yeah.
to Squarespace, and then I had to do something in the back end, and I was just being really lazy, and I was like, oh, and I just pressed the button, and I was like, I know I've done that. And I just knew it at the time, but I'd saved most of the pictures, so they were all on the hard drive, but the posts were gone.
Yeah.
But I wasn't using it, so it's not a big deal. I was entering a new era of business owner.
Yeah.
Excuse me, business owner life rather than kind of influencer life. So it kind of is fine, but I do think about it most days.
Honestly, speaking to you, you're such an inspiring woman, and I feel like there's so many questions I can get from what you've just said, but I really wanted to touch on your experience of building 7/6 Agency. Like, what has that process been like for you? If somebody wanted to build their own agency or their own business, what advice would you give them?
Don't follow the route that I did, because I did everything so roundabout and backwards and long. But it means I have loads of stories to tell, and I can give so much advice of what I would do differently. And I think the biggest issue with building a business, especially if you don't have many contacts, I've got really good people around me, but I'm not great at asking for advice or for help. So if I wanted to speed things up, I would have asked those people around me earlier, which is annoying because there are so many people that build businesses that don't have the people around. I have incredible business owners in my family and in my friendship groups that I could have built my business like that with their advice. And a lot of people don't have that, so I don't know why I didn't use what I had. But it's been a real journey. Because I didn't really know what I was doing, and people always say, oh, no one knows what they're doing at the beginning. But I feel like if I were to go back in time, I'd maybe do things slightly differently. Because like I said, I'm not very good at maths, and I'm just the finance side. Basically, the business side of 7/6 is my nemesis. It's the hardest part. I love doing the job of influencer marketing. I'm really good at it. I just love anything to do with influencer. But being the founder, being the founder, being the CEO, that's actually a really hard job, and I don't love it. I'm not gonna lie. If I could switch with someone else, I think I would. But yeah, it's just been the one word I would say, it's just been quite long. So we're 5 years in now. I keep saying that I feel like I've done a 4-year MBA. So I've done 4 years of learning on how to build a business. It's now finally clicked. My brain is like, okay, I'm here. I think the last 6 months I've been in like focus mode, and I feel like I know what I have to do now. So that's great. But before, excuse me, but before I was literally just kind of feeling my way. So because I'm a marketer, my natural instinct is to just do marketing. But it means I'm not very good at sales. I don't really understand how to sell my business. Or I find sales quite boring, like lead generation and all that. I'm kind of just like, I have to email people. They might not email me back. That's kind of
It's so
boring.
rude as well
I
that
don't
no
like
one replies.
rejection.
Yeah, I just can't stand it. But do you know one thing that helped change it for me is my sister. She's very numbers orientated. Is that the word?
Mhm.
Yeah. And she's like, it's a numbers game, and I always remind
Yeah.
myself, like, okay, do you know what? It is a numbers game. If they don't reply, it's fine. I just need to email 10 to get one, or that kind of thing,
Yeah.
and that does help a lot.
You've got to have really thick skin, I think.
Yeah.
And what I've learned, I think this year, I think I've changed how I think about things. I've read a few books, a bit of self-help. I went through therapy quite heavily over the last couple of years. And I think one of the biggest things I've just kind of embedded in my mind now is it's just now that it's not. So yeah, how do I explain it? If someone doesn't reply to you or they don't want to work with you, it's fine. In my mind, I'm just like, it's just because it's now. But in 6 months' time, 3 months' time, 2 weeks' time, they'll see us on something and they'll want to work with
Yeah.
us. The moment's just not now.
Yeah.
And I think you have to have a sense of like delusion to be a founder.
Mhm.
But I also really do rate myself and what we're doing. And I think in the past, I've been so scared to like I'm quite outspoken in the industry, but only to a certain extent. So I've been scared to, just kind of like get my voice heard in the right way,
Yeah.
and B, just feel confident in what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I've always been saying the same thing, and I've not changed the drum I've been banging. It's always been the same. But I think now I'm just like, no, no, and I guess it's come with experience because the work that we get now, the people that speak to me and want me to come and do talks and want me to do consultancy within their businesses. These are like some of the we work with brands, but we also work with some of the biggest agencies in the influencer space and advertising. And we do work behind the scenes that they come to us and they ask us for help.
Mhm.
And that's a big deal.
It is.
And I've realized I need to take note of that. Whereas before I'd be like, oh, they only need to do that because, D&I is a big part of their, tick boxing exercise. And I've always had an excuse as to why someone would want to work with me. It's like, oh, I was a last minute thought. I'm probably cheaper than someone else. Now I'm like, no,
Yeah, no, I'm that girl. That's why they want to work with you, Charlotte.
but
You're
we're
girl.
those girls because my team, the team really are holding it down, and we're all women, and we're all, really. I really, really, well, apart from our finance manager, sorry, you're not counted. But we're all really doing our thing. But I think, the confidence, but that comes with experience. Some people go straight in with confidence. And there are people out there that can definitely help you with that as well. But I didn't have that at the beginning, and I also didn't know how to ask for it.
And I do think it does take time. Like you said, I really do think it is a matter of time, experience, because having the experience is what makes you confident sometimes. And I think, like, I always say this little story like to people in my life. I basically decided at 16 that I wasn't going to care what people think about me.
Oh
Like,
my
I
gosh.
remember having like a clear thought because I was about to move to sixth form in a different school, and I was feeling like stressed, like, oh, I don't know, what if I don't make friends? Or but then I just said, "Do you know what? Who cares? Like, you're not gonna care." And then I was like, you're only going to be there 2 years. Even if no one likes you, you're out of there anyway. And I've tried to like adopt that with a lot of things that
I
I
love
do
that for
moving
you.
forward. But no, honestly, the thing is, at that time, I was so young, but I need to constantly remind myself of that. And I do think, like, with experience and as I mature, it just reaffirms it a bit more. And I've got better at not caring the older I've got. So that's
I
what I would say.
I struggle with this, and it's only been in honestly, the last week. I had two friends give me a pep talk. I had just like a really weird interaction with someone, and my thing was like, oh my goodness, I really don't want them to think that I'm, a bad person, whatever. And
Mm.
everyone around me was like, no, no, you're not in the wrong here. You're fine.
Yeah.
But all I could think, even though this person made me feel really bad and
Mhm.
whatever, everyone around me was like, that you've literally done nothing wrong. Stop trying to like bend over
Mhm.
backwards. And I have a thing with like my time. I have this guilt, which I feel like I've kind of stopped, but have this guilt thing of like people message me all the time asking to pick my brain or to take my
Mm.
time. And I would always give my time out. But now when I say I don't have to, like, I literally don't have time to sleep. Like,
Yeah.
I live with my husband. I very rarely see him. Like, I am so tired. I have no social life. I have been out since July and we're in November. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a loser. Like, I had another
Yeah.
hour and you want to meet me for a coffee? That's great. But I don't have time to do that with
Yeah.
any, like, I haven't seen my nan in like a month. Like, why is it that I need to give you my time and I feel guilty about not doing that?
Yeah.
And other people don't do that. And also, I
No.
didn't ask for anyone's time when I started my business and I was fine. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
like, if I don't give it to them, they'll be fine. Like,
They will
why do I
be.
feel this sense of guilt? But I've had a couple of pep talks in the last couple of weeks. And I also now, I physically can't give anyone anything at the
Mhm.
moment. So because of that, I kind of just have to say, sorry, no,
Yeah.
in the nicest way possible. And yeah, but I really struggle with how I'm perceived. And I don't know if that's a me personality thing, it's a neurodivergent thing. I have been told that that is something that certain neurodivergent people have issues with. There's a word for it. I can't remember. Someone basically taught me this week, and I can't remember what it is. It has a name, but I really struggle with it, and it's something I've always, even when I was at school, always just like being perceived by people of not being nice, and I
Yeah.
don't know why. And my best friend, when I met her, she didn't like me. We used to work together, and I basically forced her to be my friend. I was like, "You have no idea how much I want to be your friend,"
Yeah.
and she was just like, "No interest, no interest." It's quite sad. It's
Mhm.
not a true representation of our relationship now either. It's like really weird, but eventually I like wore her down,
Mhm.
and I was like, "No, I am a really nice person." I think I was just too nice, and she said to me one
Yeah.
day, she was like, "You're always just being so nice. Just
Mhm.
note that like some people aren't going to like you, and that's okay."
Mhm.
And I was just like, "But why?" And they're like, "There's no reason why. It just is." And
That's the
I always have it in the
thing.
back of my mind. Like sometimes I'm going to rub people up the wrong way. I'm quite annoying. My voice is high pitched. I have quite a young energy. Like some people that might be just annoying.
Mhm.
I I'm always right most of the time. That's probably really annoying. There's certain things I do. I'm always
Mhm.
late. I have like all these little things. There's lots of things that people won't like about me, and
Mhm.
that's okay.
It is.
But because I think I don't mean to do it, I'm not doing it on
Mhm.
purpose, but that's fine.
It really is. Honestly, Charlotte, I just feel like it's exhausting trying to make everybody like you
Yeah.
as well. The best thing you can do is just be yourself, and
Yeah.
ultimately, like, your people will come to you as they have.
Yeah.
And that's like my view. I feel like if someone doesn't like me, honestly, it's their problem, not mine.
I really need to spend more
Like,
time with you.
genuinely, I'm honestly all about that. And I always say, because my husband as well, like, he always like makes up these random scenarios. I'm like, I promise you, like, these people are not thinking about you as much as you think they are. Honestly, most of the time, I think that's what it is. The thought of it is always worse than the reality of
Yeah.
it. So, yeah, I actually wanted to talk about your influencer pricing reports as well,
Mm.
because you mentioned something about diversity, and obviously, I know that you created these influencer pricing reports, which actually a lot of brands use as kind of a
Yeah.
guideline as well, which is also very important. But could you tell us a bit about that
Mhm.
and how that came about?
Yes. So in 2020, so we launched in 2019, 2020, we were really busy. All of a sudden, I went from being this like consultancy business with me and an intern to being this like full functioning agency. And I had like 6 staff members, an office in Soho, and it was just like really crazy. And it was exciting, but it was also very overwhelming. But one of the big things that we were struggling with was pricing. So we knew from experience how much influencers were charging and what to pay them. But on our talent side, we were getting a lot of pushback for certain creators on how much they were charging. But when we looked at the creators that were getting the pushback, there was like a common thread. They had a darker skin tone, they had non-European looking features, and the creators who were a bit more like racially ambiguous or lighter skin tone or looser curls were getting paid more. And it was just really clear. And then we thought, like, imagine if we had a white creator in our books, like they'd probably be getting paid way more.
Yeah.
So we needed data basically to use as evidence that that was the case, but then also to show to these brands when we were telling them, this is their rate, this is how much you should be paying them. It kind of backed that up without being like, what you're doing is discrimination, it's this form of racism, da, da, da. You just wanted to be like, here, read this report. So that was 2020. We sent out some surveys to creators. We had hundreds of creators, hundreds of brands fill out these surveys. And in 2021, we released our first report, and it was called Lifting the Lid. And that was lifting the lid on kind of like D&I pain points within the influencer space. And it highlighted pay gaps. And interestingly, excuse me, it's cold in here, so I keep getting wet.
Yeah.
So interestingly, that was at the same time that the #influencer pay gap Instagram account got started. So I spoke with the girl who runs that, and I was like, really want to do a lot. And she had like amazing data. We didn't end up working together in the end, but had really good chat and just realized how important it was, how much needed to be done. So we created this report and we highlighted the pay gaps, and that was mainly around kind of race and ethnicity. So at the time, I didn't realize how important skin tone was, like how much it needed to be asked in the surveying time. So in our most recent report, we did questioning around skin tone and hair type, which I was really excited for, because I personally believe that saying a black influencer gets paid more than a white influencer doesn't mean anything unless we know like the tone, because I'm mixed race and have a lighter skin tone, but my family members who are not mixed had the same skin tone as me.
Yeah.
So, we would all probably benefit from that privilege, whereas someone with a dark skin tone wouldn't. And, I think skin tone is so important, it doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have done it now for 3 years, and we're currently working on 2025, which will be released in June. And this year is the next one is so impressive. We've just started planning it, and I actually cannot wait with the data that we haven't even started putting out surveys, but the reports are used across the industry. It's very UK focused because for the ones we've done so far, because we're in the UK.
Yeah.
So US creators and other creators can't really use it because, especially in the US, their pricing is way more than how we price. It's very different, but we will get to that in the next report. But yeah, it's just a guideline for how much a creator should charge, but then also how much influencer marketers, PRs, etc., brands should be paying creators. But when I say it's a guideline, it's brackets. So if you have between 1,000 to 5,000 followers and you have a good engagement rate, this is how much you could charge. It's not saying definitely charge this.
Yeah.
And then as it talks through the additions of what else you could charge for, like usage rights, paid spend, and little things that creep up to make it a good partnership.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's free to download for creators. So if you're a creator, you can go on the SevenSix website and go to the Creator Club page, and you can download it there. And then for brands, it's a small fee to purchase it because it's a tool.
Hey, yeah. Yeah. That's so good, honestly. I wanted to ask, do you think that anything will actually change moving forward in the industry? Obviously, with George Floyd, I know that there was quite a lot of interest in diversity and inclusion, but now I'm wondering if the hype has kind of died a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
It's definitely died. George Floyd's death brought a resurgence of interest, care, conversation around Black lives, diversity in general. It had a real, such an awful tragedy, but had an incredible, for a short moment, positive repercussion on so many industries. But looking into 2024, so many jobs are no longer. The DEI space, like, people don't even talk about it anymore. It's like crazy, but it's like crazy. But it's really sad to see. But I think there has been some change that's been made. And I do like to think that change will continue. I had a really great conversation this week with a giant agency who really want to do some stuff in-house and make changes within their processes and put training in place. And I just thought, if an agency your size, who basically control all of the agencies, can input some kind of system around diversity and inclusion and really care about it, then I think there is opportunity there. Until the conversation I had with them, I thought, oh, we're done now. And I've even changed, like, our messaging in SevenSix. So we used to bang our drum about D&I, we talk about inclusion. Now I'm just like, we're an influencer marketing agency, because the stuff that we do, we're just going to do it no matter what. So they're getting it. And if you work with us, that's just part and parcel. And I just focus on talking about how influencer marketing works and how good we are at influencer marketing, because no one really cares. If I do a talk, if I get booked for a talk, and I mention anything about D&I in the subject, it will be half empty, and the majority of the people that are there will be people of color.
Oh my gosh.
Or someone from a minority group, so LGBTQI plus, or anyone who doesn't need the chat. So what I do now is I don't ever mention D&I, and I trick people when I get them in. And I do it. And I did it the other day, and people were like, "Oh," and I was just like, "Yeah, I got you." And I did a talk last week, and I did that whole surprise. It was a packed room, and I was thinking, I'm so grateful that they are here, because they didn't know what I was going to give them, and that's awful, having to trick people into hearing anything about diversity.
But at least they're hearing it.
Yeah.
And I know
I
it's
thought
not like you need to trick them, honestly. But if that's what you need to do for now, if you have the opportunity to be on those stages, then why not? And I feel like the people that came, I'm sure they took something away from
I
it.
got really good feedback from it.
Yeah. And I wanted to kind of like ask about, because we mentioned this earlier, like before we started recording, just talking about whether or not, okay, I always feel a bit funny saying this, and I said it when I said, like, I feel like it's slightly controversial to ask this, but it does need to be asked. I obviously understand that there is a huge gap in terms of the pay and things like that. No, not anything too crazy, don't worry. But no, I know that there's a big gap, like, and I know that that gap does exist, but I do also wonder if, are there any other factors that are kind of creating that disparity in pay?
I don't know. I was speaking the other day to a bunch of girls, and there was a white PR and then two Southeast Asian creators. And I was talking about, I didn't even bring it up. I'm always the girl that's talking about, oh, this happened. There's always something race related in my chat. Like, it just comes out. It's all I know. But they brought it up. And then I was like, oh yeah, in our pricing report this year, the stats were really bleak for Southeast Asian creators in particular. The pay gap between, according to our survey, the pay gap between Southeast Asian creators and white creators is over 57%. I think it's 57.1% or something. And that's the biggest gap that we saw. Black and white creators was around, top of my head, it was 35 or 37%, I think. I've completely lost it from my mind. So that Southeast Asian creator gap's huge in comparison. But I think when we talk about diversity, it's very black or white, like, which really grinds my gears, because obviously that is something that should be obviously really important to me, and it is, because I am a black creator, and that's the whole thing. But everyone else has forgotten, and I think we as a community are used as like diversity, like tokenism, full stop. like tick, oh, I've got a black creator in there.
Yeah.
Tick. If it's a dark skinned person as well, double tick. Like I've done my job. Forgetting every single other community that existed because we have that. And we're not getting booked for enough stuff anyway. But then I also think no one's getting booked for anything. So I really wanted to talk about this pay gap. But I was talking to these girls and I asked them, do you think that, where do you think things have changed? And they actually said that the Black Lives Matter resurgence in 2020 was a really big knock-on effect for them as well. Because I know as Black creators and Black mixed heritage creators, we were pushed quite heavily. There were lots of like Instagram posts of like top Black creators to follow, and like we were everywhere. But I did wonder about other communities, and they said that they got a lot of work after that, and they're not mad at it because obviously people have like woke up to diversity, which was an example of how we go through the struggle and everyone else benefits
from it.
But I think it was really interesting to hear the other side because I hadn't ever spoken specifically to creators from other communities about that. So I think that was really eye-opening. But I don't necessarily think there is a factor other than people just aren't being seen and booked. There's one thing of like, okay, some creators' content just isn't very good. Some people are out there making content and not being paid for it, but the people that are making great content and being paid are being paid lower. So I don't think that those facts exist in themselves. So there could be other factors that contribute to other things, but I think the payment side is quite kind of black and white. To use the pun. I also think that one of the biggest things in influencer marketing is that, I say this all the time, the whole industry is built on friendship and who you know.
It is.
So if you don't know PRs, if they don't know you, if they don't have any interaction with you, they're probably not always going to book you. And I had the conversation with a really big agency last week and said, as an agency that manages talent, that all the creators are people of color, we find that a lot of the campaigns that we get our talent on, and we don't say this to them because we don't want to make them feel bad, but a lot of the campaigns that we get our talent on are really last minute. And I know that
you plan in advance.
You've been planning this for months, but you've asked my creator to do a 2-week turnaround or sometimes a 1-week turnaround. And it's because they've forgotten to add any diversity into the campaign. And that is such a common thing. And I speak to a lot of other agencies who are within our space and they say the exact same thing. So there's so much that needs to change. And I feel like if we just talk about it over and over again and just let people like recognize it. Because when I brought it up, they were like, yeah, that agency was like, yeah, that makes sense because we do that sometimes. I was like, yeah, but imagine all of the agencies doing that and how last minute our, campaigns are, whereas everyone else is getting, a month. Sometimes 3 months. Like some campaigns are like, there are influencer marketers that watch this and be like, 3 months, you don't. But sometimes campaigns are booked in advance. But we are often faced with like really short turnarounds because they needed that diversity element.
Yeah. So horrible. And it's such a shame. But I do think this is why, firstly, network is your net worth. Like networking is so key. And actually, I did want to ask you this question as well. Like, brand deals are obviously not the only source of income that creators can have. So I personally think that creators of color especially, you kind of need to create a safety net in other areas for yourself. So what other areas could they do that?
Oh, so many. I think I'm a big fan of affiliate marketing. I say this, I don't do that much of my own and I need to start doing it because when I do it, it does work. When I do it, it does work. So that's really good. But affiliate marketing is when you get a commission off of selling something.
I used to do affiliate. Oh, actually, sorry, no, for the
I'm not explaining to you.
I was gonna say that used to be my job,
but someone else. When I say affiliate, a lot of people are like, oh, what is that? So a lot of influencers use like LTK or Amazon associates, so Amazon affiliates in the US, and they'll get a commission of everything they sell. And I think if you have selling power, not every creator does. And it depends on the type of product or the service that you're selling, but that is really good. And then also you can use those numbers as case studies for campaigns. You can show a brand, like people will buy the things I'm selling.
Yeah.
They've bought your brand from me and we haven't worked together yet. So, also having some kind of product. So be that a newsletter that you can put, a brand into, or basically just like not just Instagram. I think a lot of creators are on one platform and that really scares me because if Instagram goes down tomorrow, what happens?
Yeah.
If you're just on TikTok, if TikTok goes down tomorrow, what happens? So it's just making sure that you're crossing platforms and you're using those platforms to their full advantage. But then also, figuring out, I'm a big fan of newsletters, a blog, somewhere where you can put a link in.
Yeah.
A lot of creators sell like presets of like filters.
Oh yeah.
Photography filters.
Yeah.
They do really well. Writing some kind of digital product that you can put on something like Gumroad to download. Yeah, there's lots of things that you could do, like the digital world is your oyster. Even renting your clothes out. A lot of creators have incredible wardrobes. So if you're getting gifted these amazing things, then it's just seeing if you can also make income off of it. So there's so much that I would recommend.
Really a shout. If you were to start all over again, what would you do differently if you would do anything differently?
I would do so much differently.
Okay,
I think my biggest thing is that I would do a bit more research to prepare me for my confidence into what it is that I'm selling. That would be the first thing. Second thing is I would go on some kind of business management course so that I would understand how a business runs. That would be a big thing. Third thing is my first hire would be someone who came from an agency rather than a junior, who could help me kind of sort things out. And then the fourth thing would be that I would get a finance manager from day one, not just an accountant, because accountants do your books, as in they file your tax return, they'll do your VAT, sometimes they do your bookkeeping, mine does. But a finance manager helps you plan for the future, helps you understand the cash flow within your business, and helps you actually predict what your next move should be or can be. And that is something that I have, and I only hired a finance manager a few months ago. And that's something that as soon as he came into the business, I was like, why have I not done this sooner? Because everything's just been going on my gut because I don't know how to run a business properly. We're very, very lucky that we haven't had any funding. We got a grant this year actually, which was really fun because I'd not thought about grants before, and I applied for it on a whim, and then we won a £50,000 grant, which is a big one for your first step as well. So now I'm like, oh, grants are great. Let's do that again. But we don't have an overdraft. We just got a credit card this year. Like everything has just been profit based. Which has been really great. But we definitely could have excelled quicker. Also, because I didn't understand anything on the P&L. So the profit percentage and all that. I literally still I don't even know the vocab now, but I understand it now. I wasn't looking at it from a business view. I was just looking at it of I want to be seen as a marketer. So I would move things around, and also it would prepare me of knowing how many staff I can have and all of that kind of stuff. So finance manager would have been probably my second hire, but at the moment it was my last hire. So but there would be the things that I would change, and I think my business would be in a very different place. And I'm fine with where we are. I'm really enjoying my journey. But I think I would have got to where we are now within 2 years if I did all of those things.
Okay, I'm going to write that down and keep that for later. Thank you so much, Charlotte, for coming on the podcast. Are you working on anything at the moment that you want people to know about, and how can they connect with you?
Just the pricing report. I think I'm in the car on the way here. I was just thinking about how excited I am for next year, and I'm doing loads of planning for it. And I think that is just the thing that I'm just pushing the most. And then you can find me on all platforms as Charlotte 76, the letters, not the numbers. So SEVENSIX. And then 7sixagency.com if you want to download our pricing report, join our creator club, which is our extended networks of creators, and just see what we're up to.
I love it. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, guys, for tuning into this week's episode of the Paula Oyinkan Show. This has been a work in progress since July, guys. I was made redundant and I decided to take a leap of faith, bet on myself, and just help women become the best versions of themselves. That's why I started the Paula Oyinkan Show. And if you're truly on a journey wanting to be the best version of yourself, then make sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow me on all major streaming platforms. It means way more than you can ever imagine. I'll literally be jumping for joy at each notification. Thank you so much, guys.